All right, we got a few questions. Let's see. Here we go, Billy. Dimitri asks, can depreciation recapture be deferred with 1031 exchange similar to capital gains taxes?
Yes, and it's a double-edged sword, keep in mind, because any basis that you're locking up in your property that you're selling, your relinquished property, that carries over to your new property or your replacement property. So I say it's a double-edged sword because you avoid that depreciation recapture. But the reason why is because your basis is lower going into that replacement property. So if you have a property that you're selling that's worth $500, keep it simple, $500 today, but your adjusted basis after depreciation is only 200, your new replacement property, say that you're buying for 550 or 600, you still are carrying through that $200 basis from the old property. Any step up in value that could be depreciated, but so it gets somewhat complicated. But in its simplest terms, you replace a 500K property with a 500K property, and your adjusted basis in your old property is 200K. That's going to be your adjusted basis in your new property and what you continue to depreciate. So while you avoid recapture, you're limited in how many depreciation deductions you can take. So it's a good idea to go out and buy something that's a little bit more value add so that you can get some depreciation deductions from that, or put up significantly more cash or take on a little bit more debt to get more depreciation deductions.
Yeah, I mean, especially people who cost seg the original property and then they go to 1031. Unless you're taking on a lot of debt on that new property, odds are you're not going to have a lot of basis to even get tax benefits from. And so that's why I kind of come up with the term like poor man's 1031 exchange, because there's a way for you to sell your property in a normal transaction, no 1031, and buy a new property. And in certain use cases, you're actually better off doing that than you are 1031ing it into the new property because of this issue of your tax basis. And so it's really a nuanced strategy. People, when I first started talking about it, people were like, well, why would you not just 1031? But when you do the math and you find out that you can actually, number one, defer the capital gains tax, right? Because you're just taking depreciation against the capital gain, and then get a higher cost, higher step up in basis on the new property. Sometimes this strategy is actually a little bit better than doing a traditional 1031.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that comes to mind is if you're one of those financially independent, retire early, and you're thinking that having a real estate portfolio is going to insulate you from having tax due. You might be banking on depreciation deductions, taking care of a lot of your tax bill, versus other investors who are just going to, just keep reinvesting those real estate investment proceeds into other real estate investments. Those people are probably better off with the 1031 exchange because all their losses and their gains will net together. But if you're kind of banking on a retirement account portfolio or a real estate portfolio for your retirement, you got to take a hard look at depreciation deductions to avoid any tax bills unexpectedly. So,
I mean, that's a good point too, because depending on the current interest rate environment, also, like, you could have a portfolio that's heavily appreciated in value, and you're looking to 1031 exchange, which you could be going from, let's say, low fours, low fives interest rates to now 7.5, and you 1031 up, it's going to kill your cash flow on that new property. So if you're one of those like financial, retire early type people, there may not be a lot of cash flow for you to have. At least you won't pay any taxes for now, but there won't be as much cash flow for you to have. So this is why it's interesting. I tell this story sometimes, but people don't understand it. When I was really young, my grandma used to take me to horse races, like the Arlington Heights, the horse track there. And she loved betting on horses. So she would tell me, she would go, don't bet that horse. He doesn't race well in the mud, or he doesn't race well on the turf or the grass. I was like, what do you mean, Grandma? She's like, some horses race well on other courses. And then I dubbed this term like horses for courses, because some strategies are going to be better for some investors. Like we're looking at Rod's question here. Like, some strategies are going to work for some investors, but you can have the investor that's literally in the same exact scenario, income wise or capital gain wise, and that strategy that we would implement for person A may not be the same as person B, even though they could be in the same exact scenario, income, capital gain wise. but that's why I just coined this term, horses for courses, because people have different motives, right?
I'm going to have to start using that phrase myself because I say that all the time. You can have the exact same investor or client profile with completely different tax situations. And that's why at our firm, we start out with, what are your goals, right? Because we want to make sure that the tax strategies we implement align with your goals. So that's exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.